Understanding relative, absolute, and mixed references in Excel is more important than any other function as a beginner. More important than the shortcuts is relative, absolute, and mixed references. You must understand the difference. Otherwise, the learning curve will be a challenge. I'm going to take you through step-by-step beginner's guide to relative, absolute, and mixed references in this video. I'm going to have add-ons, and if you enroll in my courses, I spend a lot of time explaining the importance of relative, absolute, and mixed references. Ready? Let's go. Brad Williams, Excel Prime. Relative references 9.11, 5 best practices for Excel's relative, absolute, and mixed references. This is one of the most important in the area of Excel, being if you don't understand relative references, copying and pasting is a challenge because absolute and relative references will screw up your calculations. I touched earlier on relative and absolute references. We're going to take a little deeper dive into the subject. Hopefully you'll have a better understanding and how to incorporate relative and absolute references. Remember, F4 is the key you want to use in terms of implementing or changing absolute and relative references. Otherwise, you can go in manually and add the dollar signs or remove the dollar signs. So a relative reference, the row and column references can change when you copy the formula to another cell. We just grab a formula, we go sum this area right here, and we'll hit OK. This is a relative reference, no dollar signs, E3, H3, and cell D3. To change this to absolute, just hit F4, and that's absolute. Hit F4 again, that it would be a mixed. Hit it again, that's still a mixed reference. And now we're back to relative reference. Absolute reference. The row and column references don't change when you copy the formula because the reference is to an actual cell address. An absolute reference uses 2 dollar signs in its address, one for the column letter and one for the row number. For example, $A, $5. Mixed, either the row or the column reference is relative and the other is absolute. Only one of the address parts is absolute. For example, $A4 or $4. If we go over here into E14, you're going to see the cell ranges. And what we're doing is just simply multiplying E13 by D14 to come up with 6 times 1. This here, E14, this setup, this is a absolute reference. To the right is a relative reference. And let me just go over this real quick. The absolute reference here in E14, the reference is fully absolute. When you copy the formula, the cell reference does not change. We copy this down, Control D, just hit Control D to copy down, or you can go up here in the ribbon, far right, under Fill, and hit down. Either way, fill down. What you're seeing here is E14 times B14 is constant. In other words, it doesn't change, and therefore we're not accomplishing our mission. And that is, we want to multiply 7 times 1, 8 times 1, 9 times 1. That's an absolute. So we'll put absolute there. And then we have a relative. And relative, we'll go back up here. The reference is fully relative. When you copy the formula, the cell reference adjusts to its new location. Well, I could just put equals A1, but here I'll show you what's going on. Control down. What's happening is simply 2 times 6 is F13 times D14. Then if you copy down, you can see we're just copying 12, F13, times D14, which is 12 times 7. And then we're multiplying F15 times D16, which is 84 times 8. Then we roll down. So that's a relative reference where, in this case, the row and the columns change. Relative. If you go over to column 3 in G13, we have a mixed. If we look here, row absolute, this is in the third example. What we have here is a dollar sign just around G13, between G13. So in this case, the reference is partially absolute. When you copy the formula, the column part adjusts, but the row does not change. What does that mean? That means if we copy this down, the columns, you can see 3 times 7 is 21. The G13 is constant, doesn't move. We adjust the D. And this is what we were trying to accomplish here in terms of the first example. And then the second example, we know that there's going to be a constant change because we're still in a relative setting. And here it's mixed. But we can copy this down, Control D. And you know 3 times 10 is 30. Nifty little example. And this is row absolute. For our fourth example, column absolute, the reference is partially absolute. When you copy the formula, the row part adjusts, but the column part does not change. Here we have the dollar sign. We have a relative, and then we have a mixed absolute. And in this case, if we're copying to the right, you're going to see that we're multiplying 4 times 6. And then we're multiplying 5 times 6. I changes, the columns change, but the row doesn't change. This would be column absolute. Now, what if we want to copy down and copy across? We know that to copy down, we have to use this example here, row absolute. And then we know to copy the column across, we have to use column absolute. So let's go over to. Be sure to check out all of our Excel courses. Excel data and text manipulation. We have an advanced beginners and intermediate course. Excel essentials. This is for individuals new to Excel. We have an advanced, excellent beginners, level 1 and level 2, and intermediate level course. Excel formulas, formulas only. We have a beginner, an advanced, and an intermediate level course. Click on any of the links. There's a short video that explains everything about the course. Check it out. Example 4, and this was set up to copy across. But now we want to copy down. So in order to do that, we want to go to H13 and make sure our reference keeps H13 from moving down. And we want to make sure D14 doesn't move to the right. In order to do that, just go to H13, hit F4, and make sure the dollar sign, row absolute position, and then to the right, make sure the column absolute is in the correct position. And just hit D4 until it's aligned accordingly. And you're going to need to practice with this, but just copy down, Control D, and you know now 4 times 7 is 28, 4 times 8 is 32. Now let's copy to the right, Control right, and 7 times 10 is 70, 6 times 9 is 54. That's a better understanding of cell range references. I suggest you build a table like this, very simple. Just add numbers across and down, and then multiply change the relative references until you understand how the workflow and the arrangements work. In terms of relative references, let's just use this quick example. Let's just go 6 times 1, E14 times E13. If you want to change your relative reference, go to the cell, highlight, go to F4, and they both change. And then if you need to change them independently, just highlight one and change it, then go to the other. And if you need to change it, hit it 1, 2, or 3 times, 4 times. You can go, you rotate up to 4 clicks and just hit enter. Brad Williams, XL Prime, out. Williams out.